My name's Ollie, I'm an addict.
Hi Ollie.
If you are satisfied he really wants to get over drinking, you need not be alarmed. Though it is infinitely better that he have no relapse at all, as has been true with many of our men, it is by no means a bad thing in some cases. Your husband will see at once that he must redouble his spiritual activities if he expects to survive.
Thanks Ollie.
Thanks, Ollie. The opinions expressed by the speaker are that of the individual and are not necessarily representative of CA as a whole. And now I'll hand you over to Andy to share his experience and understanding.
Thanks, Lenny. My name's Andy, I'm an addict.
Hi Andy.
Thank you to everyone for making me feel so welcome, it's good to be here. My home group is the Friday night newcomers meeting in Swindon, 6 o'clock. It's good to be clean today, it's good to be free from addiction today. And I like the name of this meeting, I like the way that you guys have set this meeting up, and I think that's really important. And it's something when I came into Cocaine Anonymous some time ago, there were people in there, they took it seriously, they took the layout of the meeting seriously, the literature person had it all kind of like laid out nicely. The people, the guys doing the tea and coffee, they were really welcoming. They had all the biscuits, all the different types of tea and coffee, and it was all done, but they knew they meant business. Do you know what I mean? I found that really important for me, and they knew what they were talking about as well. It was really nice to sort of be part of that. It was the Sunday night meeting in Swindon, and there were people there that had been going there for years. While I was out there still using and suffering, they were meeting up, at 7 p.m. every Sunday night, and they've been doing that for years. I never knew they were even there, and I was out, running around Swindon and other places, trying to find drugs, being driven my whole life, being driven by substance. They're all meeting up on a Sunday night, with their big books, talking about this stuff, talking about this condition, this illness, in fact, as it's described and in the big book. And I never knew that I suffered with that, and I never understood that, and I was so grateful to those people, that were meeting up and taking that meeting and organising it and setting the chairs up, and everyone had their own little bit of responsibility in there, like you guys have tonight, and it's really important, because addiction's a serious condition. Alcoholism is a serious condition. It takes people's lives. A friend of mine was telling me the other day, that we know a girl in Swindon who died recently of this illness, and a member of our home group went to her funeral, and the daughter, like 10-year-old daughter, putting a flower on the coffin. And the woman who died, they never knew. She never knew about CA. Never got to a meeting. And that's the reality. That's the stark sort of futility of this condition, this illness. Our situation. Most of us don't make it. Most of us, in fact, most of us never even get to get a seat in Cocaine Anonymous. We don't. Most of us never get to do service in Cocaine Anonymous. Most of us end up in jail, or we die, or we carry on using to the bitter end. And I'm sure you guys, are well aware of that. I think that it's important just to say that if you're sat in this room tonight, you're lucky, really. Many people are out there running around. I mean, it's raining hard out there. It's been raining all day, isn't it? People are out there running around, trying to score, trying to get that drink down their neck, and we're in here with our cups of tea and whatever, talking about how great our lives are, about how we've recovered, or whatever, I don't know. All I know is that I'm here tonight to just share briefly about the bit that Ollie just read, and I'm sharing to a room full of potential sponsors. Like, that's all it is for me, I'm aware that there's people that have been in here, been clean, and been in CA for over 10 years in this room, and there's also people in this room, that haven't been clean 10 days, and that's what we do in Cocaine Anonymous. That's what we're about, that's what we're here. We keep coming back, don't we, for the new man, to give them an opportunity to get into recovery, to give them an opportunity to have the same freedom that we were given, free of charge, that was passed on to us, and we play it forward like that, I never knew about that. I never knew, that was what this stuff is all about. I never understood that that's the kind of common feature of the big book. That's what the big book's sort of leading us towards, to become useful to other people, to other addicts. It says, doesn't it, that, we can help when no one else can. And it talks about this stuff being sort of effective whilst all other activities fail. I suffer with alcoholism, I suffer with addiction, and I'm a big book addict. That means, as I've come to understand it, that I suffer with an illness which prevents normal functioning of my willpower. What that kind of means is that I have no effective mental defence against that first drink or drug, and that at certain times, my memory, my willpower, my reasoning is going to fail, and I'm going to find some trivial reason, some alibi, some excuse to pick up that first drink or drug, and there's nothing I'm going to be able to do about it when I'm in that mind state. In the big book, it sort of says, doesn't it? It says, what kind of thinking dominates the mind of an alcoholic or an addict who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of that first drink? I never understood that the problem was before I take the first drink, prior to taking that first drink, preceding that first drink or drug. I thought that the problem was after, proceeding, whilst I'm using. I can't stop whilst I'm using. I thought that was the problem. I thought that was what powerlessness meant. In fact, that's what I was told. I was told, that my life's unmanageable and you're powerless, Andy, because of that. And if I address these areas of my life, going through the steps, if I address the areas of my life, which are triggering me into relapsing, then I'll be alright. That's what I was taught. That's what rehabs all over the world teach us. That's what they say. That's what people get paid tens of thousands of pounds for writing books and programs for treatment centres to suggest that we do that, and that there's a solution there. And there's shares on YouTube and podcasts that that point towards that philosophy. As long as I sort myself out, address my personal problems, I'll be all right. Does that work for anybody in here? For the benefit of the recording, there's a few people in there shaking their heads. No? No, nor me. And we know what those methods are. We know what those strategies look like. Yeah, we've heard them, we've seen them, we've used them. Some of us even continue to use them, even though they failed us miserably in the past. We still try on our willpower, we still try on our memory, we still try on our reasoning, yeah? And those three things combined, the book calls it a peculiar mental twist, amongst other kind of terms. But I think that term in itself is quite relevant. I mean, it's relevant for me. It's my experience that, I start to feel better about myself. I've done some work on myself. I've looked at my defects of character, my shortcomings. I've understood all the different forms of selfishness. I've looked at my agnosticism. I may well have even had a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience. I may well have forgiven myself and made amends to myself for all the unloving things that I've done to myself. I may well be in a meeting doing service and helping others and, being a good Samaritan, but there's more to it than that. I never knew that I can be a part of something. I can be somebody that people listen to, because I've got experience of addiction, I've got experience of that peculiar mental condition, the peculiar mental twist, the strange mental blank spot. I've got that experience. I've been able to diagnose myself as a true big book addict through pages 20-21 of the big book. I've listened to other people and how they've done it. I was taken through the book in a certain way that was new to me, that was uncomfortable for me, because earlier on I was talking about these ideas, these philosophies, that are world-renowned ideas about addiction and how we can address our lives and our problems and we're going to be okay. I listened to something new. It wasn't about that. It didn't involve anything. That didn't even come into it. If anything, it was the opposite to all that. It contradicted those ideas, and it is a bit weird because the book goes on in the first sort of few chapters and then chapter 7 to even contradict, the sort of preface, the doctor's opinion in the big book. So no wonder we're all confused and we're all fighting with each other about this stuff. They didn't really help us very much, did they? These founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they even admit that in the book, this seething cauldron of debate. And it says they would love to have written a book which would bear no contention for argument, or dispute or cause no controversy. But we're dealing with matters that are a bit fucked up. Really, I mean, your story, Rob. You just went down the shop, man, after the best share you've ever heard to get some bread and milk, and you come out with a bottle of vodka. I mean, that's not normal. That's not what other drinkers do. It's not what that's not what other drug users do. Yeah, that's not what hard drinkers do, or hard users do. That's the behaviour of a chronic, relapsing, hopeless addict or alcoholic. repeating time after time that desperate experiment of the first drink. He's raising defences. That's like, you're one of us, bruv. Like, you're bang in trouble. And I just hope that you stick around to take someone through the work. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say, really. I will now talk about that reading. 120, Ollie, yeah? Page 120 into Wives. Though it is infinitely better that you have no relapse at all. You know, no one likes to hear about someone relapsing. No one really, in some meetings they don't even talk about it. It's a dirty word, you know. And people punish people for relapse. You know, they blame the relapse on some kind of like moral issue, you know, or some intelligence problem, or something that they weren't doing. They weren't doing the suggested things, or they were doing something. They were doing something that they shouldn't have done. You know, you shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have done that. You know, imagine that. Imagine being a newcomer and being blamed for your relapse, being sat in a chair, thinking when everyone else is like 10, 13 years clean, and there's a newcomer in here who just relapsed, doesn't know what's going on, baffled and confused. Pain, you know what I mean? You know, just knowing, you know, sort of convinced as well that they're going to do it again. It's waiting to use. Waiting, you know, mental twist already acquired, perhaps. For me, that makes for more using. You know, I just think, oh, fuck you lot. I don't belong here. You know, and I hear everyone else talking about stuff and makes me feel separated from you guys. And I find that quite common in Cocaine Anonymous. You know, what are we talking about in Cocaine Anonymous? You know, what's our primary purpose? I think it's changed. I think it's shifted. I think that we need to pause when agitated or doubtful around our fifth tradition. You know, let's have a global conscience. Yeah, let's take this to conference, yeah, and discuss this stuff. You know, what are we talking about? You know, autonomy is great. You know, I love that. I love that there's all different meetings talking about different stuff. You know, we have discussion meetings on a Friday night, and we studied a big book in Swindon. We have discussion meetings. It's opened up, and it's all about the newcomer sharing their experience, strength, and hope. You know, around this problem, and you know, but what is the problem? The problem as we see it, you know, not an illness of mind and body. You know, it's going back. I've diverted from what I was going to talk about, but it says on page 120, though it is infinitely better that they have no relapse at all, as has been true with many of our men, it is by no means a bad thing in some cases. You know, what we kind of come to understand in our home group, you know, is that relapse can be quite a useful concept. Yeah, in fact, it can be a gateway for someone to get into recovery. You know what I mean? Because when they begin to see and match their experience with the guys in More About Alcoholism in chapter 3 of the book, you know, and they're with someone who knows, whose whole deportment is about that they've recovered, and that they're able to follow chapter 7 succinctly, and use that chapter to break down the illusion of power over relapse and break down any strategies and ideas that this person might have, something amazing can really happen. I've seen it, I've seen it tonight in the car with Ash. We did it. Do you know what I mean? Something's happened already tonight. And there was no opinion there. There was no kind of like therapy involved in that. There was no. It was just straight out the big book, really. Some ideas straight out of the big book, straight out of chapter 7 and chapter 3, and it says, your husband will see at once that he must redouble his spiritual activities if he expects to survive. And what I see about that is that, if we're going to survive, if we're going to grow as a fellowship, if we're going to be around for the newcomer, and our meetings are going to grow, and we can't be a meeting full of hard drinkers or hard users. It just can't go on. This stuff's so vital to the new man who suffers with this condition, that a room full of hard drinkers, they're gonna bend the new guy out of shape. I've seen it so many times, and that's my experience. And I know I don't have any say in that. I don't have any power in that, or any control over that. I see my man alone, and I've made attempts, to, over the years that I've been clean, to double my activities. I do whatever I can for the man who's still sick. I'll take him into my home. I'll fight with him. If anything, I'll even administer a sedative. I will. I'll do that. I know that there are people in here that do that as well. And I believe that that's the only thing that's really kept me going. That's the only thing that's given me a bit of grace. That's the only thing that's given me a defence. That's where my spirituality begins. Working with others is my spiritual activity. Coming here this evening is my spiritual activity. I don't want my daughter putting a flower in my grave. And the thought of that is unbearable. But the thought of that will not be enough to stop me from going back out there again. My defence must come from a higher power. Where do I find that power? The step 12 results, are pretty good. They kind of would be able to describe that better than I ever could. But I think that I'm just lucky to be here, really, that I've bumped into a few guys, when I suppose, when was it, 2011, bumped into a few people who were doing this, who were talking about this, from all over the country. There's been a shift in what we're talking about, and I think that, it's really important to try and stick by what we believe, stick with our experience, stick with the information outlined in the big book, continue to unlock and unpick the first step so that we can accurately and adequately present that to the newcomer so that they might have the same opportunity that we were given, and I will read a little bit from chapter 7 before I finish. And on page 90, I think it is, 92. 92. Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. Give him an account of the struggles that you made to stop. Show him the mental twist. Show him the mental twist. Which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this as we have done it in the chapter on alcoholism. If he is an alcoholic or an addict, he will understand you at once. He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. Thank you very much.
Thanks.